position. You ain't got the time to pay me no mind. Well, I don't give a damn. You see, I'm doing just fine. I hear that you have had the pleasure of playing with two of my all-time idols, Bob Dylan
Yes.
and Johnny Lee Hooker. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, just to be a fly on the wall.
Well, I'll start with the Hooker thing. That was my first real professional gig. I was just a drummer in my basement when this great band from New York, they were like a Paul Butterfield blues band, Jay Giles type, white blues crew from the East Coast. They came to Ann Arbor to play the Ann Arbor Blues Festival way back in the early 70s. And their drummer quit and just left them hung up with no drummer. And a friend of mine who was living in Ann Arbor gave them my phone number, and they called me. I went out and auditioned. I got the gig, and Bill Hyde was the keyboard player. I don't know if you know Bill, but he's phenomenal. Anyway, they go, okay, you're in. The next gig is
tonight.
We're John Lee Hooker's backup band, And I'm like, I have literally done nothing professionally in my life.
How old were you?
17.
Nice.
So I meet John Lee Hooker.
That's what's up.
I meet John Lee Hooker at the show, man. I mean, he's in his prime at this point. He's got a snakeskin hat on. He's got the platform boots, And I'm like, hi, John, I'm your drummer. Is there anything you really need me to do? What are we gonna do? And he just looks at me and he was very cool. He goes, look, man, don't worry about nothing. He goes, just watch my foot. And I would just stare at that foot. He'd bang off the tempos and boom. And actually, looking back on it, that was probably the greatest advice I got, in the music business, because he basically took me and just flung me in the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like, you're gonna either swim or drown. And I just watched that foot, man, and hung in there on the groove, and we killed the shows. Oh, it was great. So having John Lee Hooker kind of giving me that advice was
you can't get a better mentor. I mean,
it was so, and at the time I didn't really realize how heavy that was, but looking back, I was like, holy man, that's some deep shit. So as far as Bob Dylan, that was a whole nother thing. I had known his bass player, Tony Gagne, for years. We're still very close friends. We made an album with a great musician called John Nicholas, who was a part of Asleep at the Wheel. And we did it for Blind Pig Records back in the 70s, so Tony and I became friends. Then Tony got the gig with Bob Dylan, and every time they'd come to town, I would take the band out to hang out because they'd want to see all the blues guys.
Right.
This was G.E. Smith and
and
Tony Gagne, and so I would take them to see like Johnny Yard Dog Jones, the Butler Twins, Uncle Jesse White,
the real Detroit scene,
the real guys, man. And they would go back to the hotel. One night, Bob Dylan was coming out of the hotel as they were all walking in, laughing and full of joy, and he goes, "Where were you guys?" I go, "Oh, we were with Tino." And he took us to all the coolest clubs. So they let me know. They go, "Yeah, Bob was like, man, next time you go to those blues clubs, let him know he'd like to come and, just sit in the corner and blow harp."
He was a little jealous.
He was feeling it, right? So I'm like, man, how cool would that be? To bring Bob Dylan to the Attic Bar in Hamtramck. But the truth is, he used to do shit like that all the time. Bob Dylan is a blues man. So one night I go into the Fox Theater, he's headlining, his manager sees me, he goes, "Tino, Bob wants you to sit in tonight on guitar." I was like, wow.
You're like, I'm a drummer.
Well, I was also playing some blues guitar, so he goes, "We're gonna do Dust My Broom by Elmore James in the key of E." And he brought me up, they plugged me into a Marshall with a great red Stratocaster they had there. Gave it to me, and we did this song, man, and people were dancing in the aisles, and he gave me this great introduction. "Hometown boy, Mr. Marty Gross, and it was like surreal, man. So if I die tomorrow, you know, I feel like I've had a nice run.
No, man.
Getting to do some shit like that.
Come on, Johnny Lee Hooker, Bob Dylan. I mean, those. Yeah. I mean, I tell my kids, I'm like, you know, they want to be songwriters. I'm like, listen to Dylan, like all of it. And
but you know, Pete, it's like you playing with Leonard Skinner. I mean, that's of the same.
Dude, it's crazy.
Heaviness. I mean, and
it's
look
crazy
what you're
to
doing,
me,
man. I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you, man.
For the beautiful work you're doing, man, and keeping this whole thing going, man. You're out there every night with one of the most iconic bands of all time, who I love.
It's pretty intense, man. I mean, I remember sitting in my basement listening to One More from the Road when I was 13.
Yeah.
Going, this is the most amazing shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And like completely blown away by the piano work on there, thinking I will never be able to play that. And then flash forward 40 years and I get a call.
Yeah.
Hey man, give me 3 steps, Sweet Home Alabama, Call Me the Breeze, and Freebird note for note. I'm like, what? Like, yeah, we got you a Skinner audition. I'm like, when? They said Thursday. It's like, dude, it's Monday.
Right.
How much, you know? But yeah, you know, it's
blessings, man, because you're where you're supposed to be. You know.
I guess so. I was at the right place at the right time.
That's great, man. So you know, I mean, we're all just doing what we can do to keep it rolling, and you know, we're blessed, man. It's basically the truth.
Absolutely, man. Tino Gross, man, thank you again, my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Tino Gross, Peter Keys here, Insomnia Chronicles. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what's up.
You say you need a man, one that understands, a man to hold you tight, a man that's out of sight. Well, I checked with my schedule, it looks like I may be available to help with your condition. Only one slight problem, I'm overqualified for that position.